never thought a simple greeting could turn my entire life around. That morning, I was just an anonymous intern at Sterling & Cole, photocopying papers day after day, silent amidst the busy crowd. But right in the main lobby, I saw a lost old man. People walked past. No one stopped. I hesitated, then chose to approach him. I had no idea he was the CEO's father, and from that moment, I was pulled into a story that went far beyond an internship. Hours spent talking with the lonely father, the steps I took leading him through the company, and the eyes of the CEO silently watching from afar. That was when family secrets began to unfold. The distance between a father and son fractures that seemed impossible to mend. I thought I would be fired, but instead, I was given an unexpected opportunity to become a bridge for the entire company to learn how to listen, and for a family to find its way back to each other. From an invisible girl, I became the one standing on a stage, watching that father and son smile, talk, and finally connect in the actual language of family, and it all began with just a simple greeting. 6 months later, everything had changed. From an invisible girl, I became the one standing on a stage, watching that father and son smile, talk, and finally connect in the actual language of family, and it all began with just a simple greeting. 6 months earlier, I was Emily Carter, a 22-year-old marketing intern at Sterling & Cole, one of New York's most prestigious advertising agencies. It sounded glamorous, but my job revolved around the photocopier, file cabinet, and coffee runs. I was the kind of person no one noticed. I ate lunch alone. I always took the stairs to avoid small talk. In meetings, I never dared to speak. Just do my part, finish the 3-month internship, and disappear. That was my plan. I used to be different. In high school, I was energetic and sociable and even joined the drama club. But a series of failures in college eroded my confidence. By graduation, I was a shadow of my former self. This internship was supposed to be a fresh start. Instead, I sank deeper into invisibility. Except for Noah, my 8-year-old brother. Noah had a speech disorder. He understood everything. He was intelligent. But he struggled to express himself with words. He would often sit in silence, ostracized by friends and misunderstood by teachers. From the day Noah was born, I threw myself into learning how to communicate with him. Letter boards, sign language, writing. He was the only reason I felt useful. That morning, the main lobby of Sterling & Cole was packed. Employees rushed by, clutching laptops, their eyes glued to their phones. At the reception desk, Rebecca, the busy receptionist, spoke to an elderly man of about 70. He wore a neat dark blue suit, his silver hair combed back, but his expression was confused. "Sir, I'm sorry, but I don't understand. Do you have an appointment?" Rebecca asked. Her brow furrowed, her tone rushed. The old man winced slightly, gesturing with his hands, trying to explain, but his words were disjointed and hard to hear. I recognized it immediately. He had a speech impairment, possibly from a medical condition. Flustered, Rebecca turned to help another guest, leaving him standing there. No one passing by stopped. A creative director swept past, laughing loudly into his phone. A group of young employees made a beeline for the elevator. The old man lowered his head slightly, his trembling hand clutching his hat. I bit my lip. My direct manager, Margaret, echoed, "Emily, you're on copy duty for the morning presentation. Don't wander off." I was about to turn back to my desk, but then I thought of Noah. How many times had he been ignored just like this? How many times had he written down a question that people couldn't be bothered to read? I knew how much that look of disappointment hurt. So I stepped forward. "Hello, sir. Can I help you?" The old man looked up. His tired eyes suddenly brightened as if in relief. He smiled, his voice hoarse but clearer. "Thank you, dear. I want to see my son, but no appointment." I paused. He addressed me confusingly, but then clarified. "My son works here. Ethan Caldwell." I was almost stunned. Ethan Caldwell, the CEO of Sterling & Cole, held absolute power on the top floor. And this was his father. My heart pounded. I was just a lowly intern. What right did I have to intervene? But looking at his anxious eyes, I knew I couldn't turn away. Please wait just a moment, sir. Let me try to contact someone for you. I helped him to a chair in the lobby, my stomach churning. Half of me was terrified Margaret would be furious when she found out I'd left my post. The other half urged me on. I was doing the right thing. I had no idea that this small decision would open the door to everything that was about to change. I sat next to the old man, my anxiety rising. He introduced himself as Thomas Caldwell. His voice was hoarse and slightly distorted, each sound a struggle as if fighting its way out of his throat. I guessed he had undergone surgery or had an illness that made speaking difficult. My son, Ethan, I want to see him, but I don't have an appointment. I nodded, trying to keep my voice calm. If you can wait a moment, I'll try calling Mr. Caldwell's secretary. My mind was in turmoil. Patricia, Ethan's assistant, was famously cold and intimidating. An intern like me calling the executive floor? I would surely be scolded. But seeing Thomas sitting there quietly, his trembling hands clutching his hat, I couldn't leave him. I dialed the number. A firm female voice answered on the other end. Executive office, Patricia speaking. I took a deep breath. Hello, this is Emily Carter, an intern. There's a gentleman here who says he is Mr. Caldwell's father and would like to see him. A moment of silence stretched on. Mr. Caldwell's father, Patricia repeated, her tone skeptical. Yes, ma'am. He's in the lobby. After a few more seconds of silence, Patricia's voice grew colder. Mr. Caldwell is in a closed meeting. It can't be arranged right now. Have him wait. I understand. Thank you. I hung up and turned back. Thomas gave a slight nod, forcing a weak smile. It's all right. I'm used to it. Sometimes he's busy, hard to see. My heart ached. A father has to say he is used to it when his son isn't available to see him. Not wanting him to sit indefinitely in the cold lobby, I suggested, if you'd like, I can show you around the company. Maybe we'll run into him after a little while. Thomas's eyes lit up. That would be wonderful. It's been a long time since I've been in such a bustling place. I helped him up, and just like that, I began a completely unauthorized tour. We visited the creative floor, where the walls were covered in posters of old campaigns. Some employees offered polite greetings, while a few chatted curiously with Thomas. When they learned he used to be a civil engineer, they listened with interest as he commented on the headquarters architecture. I translated each sentence, watching his eyes sparkle with joy. In the account management department, Thomas watched employees making calls to clients, his lips moving slightly. Very stressful, I imagine, but they're skilled. In the break room, he told me stories of his younger days, how he used to bring Ethan to construction sites and show him how to erect scaffolding and take measurements. He loved it back then. But as he grew up, he chose a different path. I'm proud, but I also feel him drifting away. I remained silent. In his words, I heard a clear longing for connection with his son that he couldn't fully articulate. My phone kept vibrating. Texts from Margaret, my direct manager. Emily, where are the copies? Get back here! I bit my lip and quickly hid the phone. Part of me feared my career would end today, but every time I saw Thomas smiling like a child exploring a new world, I couldn't stop. We paused on the marketing analytics floor, and it was there that I saw a familiar figure. Ethan Caldwell was on the mezzanine above, hidden behind a glass pillar. He stood straight, arms crossed, his gaze following our every move. The blood in my veins turned to ice. How long had he been there? Did he see me abandoning my work, leading his father around the company like I had any authority? Startled, I looked down, pretending to continue our conversation. But when I glanced up again, Ethan was gone. My heart raced, a single thought flashing. I'm going to be fired. And I've dragged Thomas into this mess. But Thomas was still smiling, completely oblivious. He looked around, his eyes shining with pride. Ethan built all of this. I just wish I could understand him more. I swallowed hard, sensing a great void between them, and I, an invisible intern, had suddenly been pulled into it. We continued through the thickly carpeted hallways, where every employee rushed about as if carrying the world's weight. To Thomas, it was all new and fascinating. "It's been a long time since I've been in such a bustling place," he said, hesitating slightly on each word. "It feels strange," I smiled, guiding him toward an area displaying old campaigns. Spotlights illuminated giant posters and award-winning slogans. Thomas stopped in front of one, studying it intently before nodding slowly. "Beautiful, but cold. It seems to be missing the human element." His simple words startled me. I had looked at these posters for years and seen only grandeur. Now I suddenly realized they lacked a human touch. On another floor, we passed by a large conference room. Through the glass, managers were rehearsing for an important presentation. Thomas watched for a long time, his eyes lighting up. Ethan. Even as a boy, he loved standing in front of people, convincing them with all sorts of arguments. He got that from his mother. She taught at a high school and always knew how to make her students believe in themselves. His voice softened as he mentioned his late wife. I suddenly saw it clearly. Behind the composed exterior was a heart carrying a long, profound loneliness. We stopped in the common area. Thomas set his hat on the table, his hand trembling slightly as he turned a paper cup. He told me about his time as an engineer, the buildings he helped construct, the days spent in the wind and rain on job sites. When Ethan was little, I used to take him with me. He would run all over the construction site asking endless questions. I thought he would follow in my footsteps, but he chose a different path. I'm proud, but I also feel him drifting away. Especially after his mother passed, he rarely talked to me. As if he was afraid of being a bother. I sat in silence, a lump forming in my throat. I thought of Noah, who was also often overlooked and quiet, but with a mind full of thoughts. The distance between Ethan and his father reminded me of the distance between Noah and the world around him. My phone vibrated again. A text from Margaret. "Emily, where are you?" "Where are the documents?" I squeezed the screen, then put the phone back in my pocket. Leaving Thomas now was simply not an option. We returned to the lobby after nearly 2 hours of wandering. Thomas seemed tired, but his eyes were bright, as if he had been rejuvenated. He took my hand and said quietly, "Thank you, my dear. It's been a long time since I saw my son's world, but perhaps I won't see him today after all." Hearing his tone, I felt my heart tighten. I didn't know what to say besides a simple word of comfort. "Maybe there's still a chance, sir." I had barely finished my sentence when the sharp click of dress shoes echoed from the end of the lobby. Margaret strode toward us, her face tense. "Emily, what are you doing here? Do you remember what you were assigned this morning?" I froze, unable to answer before a deep voice spoke behind me. "Actually, I need to speak with her first." I turned, and my heart nearly stopped. Ethan Caldwell stood there, his expression serious, but his eyes focused entirely on me and Thomas. The lobby seemed to freeze. Margaret's jaw dropped as she recognized the speaker. "Mr. Caldwell, I was just reminding Emily because she—" Ethan raised a hand, silencing her. His gaze never left me. "Ms. Carter has spent the entire morning helping my father, and from what I observed, she did an excellent job." I was stunned, unable to believe my ears. So he had been watching all along, not just appearing by chance. Thomas stood up, his face beaming. "Ethan." His voice trembled, a single word filled with longing. Ethan gave a slight nod, then turned to me. "Emily, please come with my father and me to my office. I'd like to have a word." Margaret stood rooted to the spot, her face a rigid mask. I lowered my head and followed the Caldwells into the elevator, my heart pounding with fear and faint hope. The CEO's office was on the top floor, with glass walls opening to a panoramic view of Manhattan. Instead of sitting behind his massive wooden desk, Ethan pulled a chair next to his father, and motioned for me to sit opposite them. The gesture eased the tension slightly. "First," Ethan said, his voice deep but slow, "I want to apologize to you, Dad. I had no idea you were here. If I had known, I wouldn't have let you wait in the lobby for so long." Thomas smiled, making a few simple signs with his hands. Ethan awkwardly tried to mimic them, slowly but with great effort. I froze. This formidable CEO was also learning to communicate with his father in a language without words. Thomas's eyes warmed, and Ethan cleared his throat before turning to me. "Ms. Carter, I owe you my thanks. If it weren't for you, my father would have left in disappointment this morning. You did what many other employees overlooked. You saw the person behind the appearance." I lowered my head, my heart racing. "Sir, I was just thinking of my brother. He's often ignored too, so I couldn't bear to see your father in that situation." Ethan was silent for a few seconds, then spoke deliberately. "Your answer gives me pause. Sterling & Cole has always prided itself on achievement, but sometimes we forget what's more important: the presence of each individual in this building. And this morning you showed me that." I opened my mouth to protest that I had abandoned my duties, but Ethan waved his hand. "No, Emily, I don't blame you. On the contrary, I want to discuss your future here." His words left me speechless. The air in the room felt thick. I looked at the father and son, then down at my clenched hands. Part of me wanted to run, while another yearned to be trusted. Ethan continued, his voice firm. "I'm creating a new position, a department dedicated to listening to employees, ensuring everyone feels seen and supported. And I want you to lead it." I almost laughed, thinking I'd misheard. An intern who was just scolded for slow photocopying is now offered the chance to lead a company-wide initiative. Thomas turned to me, a proud smile etched on his face. He rarely compliments anyone. "You should take that to heart." I didn't know how to respond, only to whisper, "Sir, I need time to think." Ethan nodded. "Of course, think it over. But remember this. I chose you not for your title or experience, but for what you demonstrated today, the ability to see what others miss." As we left the office, Thomas touched my shoulder, his eyes filled with trust. I stepped into the elevator, my chest still pounding. Just a few hours ago, I was an invisible intern. Now, I stood at a crossroads that could change everything. The next day, I walked into the company with a heart as heavy as a stone. I had tossed and turned all night, thinking about Ethan's offer. Part of me craved the opportunity, while the other feared I wasn't strong enough. Margaret stopped me right in the hallway. Her face was cold. "Emily, do you have any idea that I had to work alone yesterday because you disappeared? Who do you think would have taken the blame if the presentation was late?" I looked down, mumbling, "I'm sorry, She cut me off, her voice sharp as a knife. "You should know. An intern who abandons her duties has no place here. I will be reporting this to Mr. Caldwell." Hearing that, my heart sank. It was over. Everything was finished. But just then, Patricia appeared. "Mr. Caldwell wants to see Emily Carter immediately." Margaret froze, her eyes flashing with surprise. I followed Patricia into the elevator, my legs trembling as if walking to the gallows. Ethan was waiting in the CEO's office. He looked directly at me, his expression unreadable. "Emily, I received a report that you abandoned your duties yesterday. Do you have anything to say?" I swallowed hard, my hands clenching the hem of my shirt. "Sir, it's true I left my post, but I did it for your father. I couldn't just leave him sitting there alone. I know I was wrong, but if I could go back, I would do it again." The room was dead silent. I could hear my own heart beating. I waited for Ethan to announce my termination, but then he gave a slight nod. I wouldn't have expected any other answer. "It is precisely because you dared to choose what was important that I want to continue our conversation from yesterday." I looked up, stunned. Ethan stood up, his voice firm. "Emily, I want to formally offer you the new position, coordinator of the Human Experience Initiative. Your job will be to ensure that everyone in this company is heard and respected. You will report directly to me." I was speechless, my head buzzing. "Sir, are you serious? I'm just an intern." A faint smile touched Ethan's lips. "Experience can be learned. Empathy cannot. That is something you have, while many highly accomplished people lack it." I looked at him, then at Thomas, sitting in a side chair, his kind face glowing with pride. "Ethan is right," Thomas said slowly. "You showed me something this company needs. Don't doubt yourself." A lump formed in my throat. I thought of Noah, his eyes sparkling as he wrote, "If you can do it, I'll dare to try too." I answered, my voice trembling, I will think about it. "But thank you, sir. Truly thank you." Ethan nodded. "I'll give you a few days. But you should know, this opportunity isn't just for you. It's for everyone like my father, like your brother, like anyone who has ever been overlooked." When I stepped out of the office, I felt so light it was as if my feet weren't touching the ground. Margaret was standing in the hallway, her expression one of utter shock. I simply nodded to her and said nothing. Inside, I knew everything had changed. I was no longer the invisible intern. I had been seen. And now, I had to decide. Did I have the courage to seize this chance? That evening, I left the Sterling and Cole building in turmoil. The streets of Manhattan were bright, and the traffic was loud, but only one sentence echoed in my mind. "I want to formally offer you the new position." The opportunity was too big, too sudden. I was both thrilled and terrified. It was nearly 8 o'clock when I returned to our small apartment in Queens. The smell of chicken soup filled the air. My mother was on the sofa, her nurse's uniform still draped over the back of a chair. She looked tired, but her eyes were warm. "Emily, you're home late. Is everything okay?" I nodded and hung up my coat, unsure how to begin. Noah was at the dining table with his small whiteboard. When he saw me, he quickly wrote. "Tell me a story." I sat down, forcing a smile. "Today, I met the CEO's father." Noah's eyes widened. He scribbled, "Really? What was he like?" I told him everything. A kind old man, lost in the lobby, how I had simply stepped up to help. I told him about showing the man around the company Ethan's appearance and the unbelievable offer. Noah listened, his eyes following every word. When I finished, he quickly wrote, "So, you're going to take it, right?" I sighed. "I'm not sure. I'm just an intern with no experience. If I fail, everyone will laugh." Noah put down his marker, crossed his arms, and looked at me seriously. Then he wrote very slowly, "I understand." I was surprised. "You understand?" Noah nodded and added, "At school, I get scared too. I want to talk, but I'm afraid they'll laugh. But if I don't try, I'll never make any friends." A lump formed in my throat. I remembered all the times Noah was left out by his friends and misunderstood by his teachers. And now, he was the one giving me the answer. "So you think I should take it?" Noah nodded vigorously, his eyes shining. He wrote, "If you can do it, I'll dare to try too." That sentence pierced my heart. We were reflections of each other. I was afraid of failure, and he was scared of being laughed at. But if one of us dared to step forward, the other would find the courage to do the same. My mother placed a hand on my shoulder, her voice gentle. "Honey, I know you're scared, but if you don't try, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. No matter what happens, Noah and I will be here." I smiled, but I was torn. The negative voice in my head repeated, "What if they're wrong to believe? And you? What if you're just the girl who copies papers? Tears welled in my eyes. Suddenly, Noah held his whiteboard up high. The letters were large, messy, but firm. You are my superhero. I laughed through my tears. A superhero? Noah nodded, a smile forming on his lips. No more words were needed. That moment was enough to make me feel my strength return. I squeezed his hand and looked out the window. The New York night was brilliant. The fear was still there, but mixed with a new rhythm. A driving drum beat. It may be time for me to stop hiding. On Monday morning, I walked into the Sterling and Cole building feeling excited and weighed down. Noah's words had replayed in my mind all weekend. If you can do it, I'll dare to try too. But when I reached the lobby, my heart was still pounding. Just last week, this was the place where the CEO's father had sat, lost and alone. Today, I had to choose my own path. The elevator took me to the executive floor. I took a deep breath and knocked on the office door. Come in, Ethan's voice called out. He was standing by the glass wall, his back straight, his silhouette framed against the Manhattan skyline. He turned only after I sat down, his eyes sharp yet calm. Emily, have you thought about it? I nodded. Yes, sir. I've thought a great deal. He sat beside his father, who had arrived earlier, holding his familiar old hat. Ethan folded his hands, his voice measured. I understand this is a big proposition. But the only real question is, are you ready to step out of your own shadow? My throat tightened. I thought of Noah, of his sparkling eyes. I was about to speak when Thomas spoke up, his voice trembling but firm. Ethan, I'm glad you're sitting next to me today, and I'm glad there's a young woman who dared to do what so many others ignore. Ethan seemed taken aback for a moment, then gave a slight nod. He turned back to me. My father is right. Emily, I watched you spend hours making him feel seen. That's something few people in this company can do, and it's why I believe in you. I looked at him, then at Thomas. All the fear inside me suddenly coalesced into a single question. Do I dare? I stood up, my hands still shaking, but my voice clear. Mr. Caldwell, I will accept. Thomas let out a soft cheer, his eyes gleaming. Ethan tilted his head slightly, a small smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. Good. Then as of today, welcome, Emily Carter, the first coordinator of the Human Experience Initiative. My whole body trembled. I could hardly believe it. I was just an intern hidden away in the copy room a week ago. Now I was officially taking on a new role that felt bigger than myself. Thomas placed a hand on my shoulder, his smile radiant. You helped me see my son in a different way. Don't forget, you can do that for this entire company. Tears welled in my eyes. I bowed my head in thanks and then shook Ethan's hand. His grip was firm and warm. At that moment, the distance between the powerful CEO and me seemed to shrink. As I left the office, I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. But I felt like I had truly begun to live for the first time in years. 6 months flew by so quickly that I barely realized how far I had come. From the girl huddled by the photocopier, I was now standing before hundreds of employees, reporting the results of the Human Experience Initiative. Small changes had gradually built into a great wave. Meeting rooms were now equipped with better audio systems and secondary screens. Onboarding was simplified. Major meetings had sign language interpreters, and inclusion training became mandatory for all managers. Many were initially skeptical, but eventually, everyone realized that when every employee was heard, the company wasn't just more efficient, it was warmer. One afternoon, Ethan came to my small office. He was still in his impeccable suit, but his voice was much softer. "Emily, next week we're attending the Workplace Inclusion Awards. Sterling & Cole has been nominated for the top prize. If we win, I want you to accept it on behalf of the company." I was stunned. "Me? But I'm just getting started." Ethan smiled faintly. "No one deserves it more. You are the one who started it all." On the night of the awards ceremony, crystal chandeliers cast a brilliant light across the Manhattan ballroom. I trembled in my simple dress, but my heart settled when I saw my mother and Noah sitting in the audience smiling encouragingly. In the front row, Ethan sat next to Thomas. They were communicating with simple, clumsy, but heartfelt signs. 6 months ago, a wall stood between them. Now, a door had been opened. When Sterling & Cole's name was announced, my heart leaped. Ethan nodded, signaling for me to go up on stage. The lights were blinding, and the trophy gleamed in my hands. I took a deep breath and began. This award isn't just for a company. It's for everyone who has ever been overlooked, and for those who chose to see them. I was once an invisible intern, but I stand here today to say that none of us are invisible. We all deserve to be seen and respected. I paused, looking down at the front row. Thomas was clapping, his eyes shining. Beside him, Ethan nodded slightly, his own eyes glistening. I want to thank one person who taught me the most important lesson. He once stood lost in our company's lobby, and a single small moment opened the door to everything. Mr. Thomas Caldwell. Thank you. The entire room turned to look at him. Thomas seemed surprised momentarily, then smiled and signed "thank you" to me. My vision blurred with tears. After the ceremony, as people were leaving, Thomas took my hand, his own warm and trembling slightly. "Emily, you gave me back my son, and you gave him a reason to see me in a new light." Ethan walked over and placed a hand on his father's shoulder. "Dad, next week, let's have lunch, just the two of us." Thomas froze, his eyes welling up. I would love that. I watched them, my heart full to bursting with happiness. I knew this wasn't just my story. It was the story of a family finding its way back to each other. Outside, the Manhattan night air was cool. Noah hugged me, holding up his whiteboard. "You really are a superhero." I laughed through my tears. Looking at Noah, my mother, and the Caldwells beside them, I understood. Sometimes, a simple greeting can change someone's entire world. And it can change you too.